Hi, everybody, and welcome to another really special Talking Insomnia episode. We have Shari with us. Welcome.
Hi.
So, for those of you who don't know Shari, she was she's a graduate of our Insomnia Immunity program, and somebody I worked with, and really, really excited to have the opportunity to hear your story, or share your story with our community. So, without further ado, really, Shari, tell us like how did you start having trouble sleeping?
Okay. It started back in November, so I think about 7 months ago now. And I was under like quite a lot of stress. I was having quite a lot of just general health anxiety. I was worried about, I think I'd had a chest infection. My mind was just sort of going on one, and I started to like freak out a little bit about it. And then it just went from there, really. I think I had a couple of like bad nights, but I didn't really think anything of it. And then it went back to normal. And then a couple of weeks later, so this must have been in October, but then November it started like really bad. I was just a little bit anxious again, and then I would wake up sort of 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep. And then the more I would panic about that, and it got sort of earlier and earlier, and then it was say 2 a.m., 1 a.m., and then I couldn't get to sleep at all. So it sort of went crazy from there. I had about I believe it was about 6 nights of just completely like no sleep at all. Like I know we say like there's some sleep happening, but it really didn't feel like it. Like I was out of bed most of the time, sort of pacing around, just freaking out, up and down the stairs and trying all the sleepy teas.
And before this, like you said, you had like a little trouble sleeping first, but you didn't really pay much attention to it. And but then this kind of like the big one happened. Like we had like all these nights of no sleep. But had you already before that started to like do things to try to sleep, like sleep hygiene or anything like that, or not really?
Yeah, I tried. First off, I tried like hot milky drinks, and I was going to bed about 8 p.m. So I think that's where I started going wrong.
I'm guessing when you say 8 p.m., that's earlier than you had in the past, right?
Yeah. Normally I would go to bed about, I don't know, 10:30, 11. So I was going to bed a full 2 hours earlier and just lying there and trying to sleep. And in the beginning, I would fall asleep earlier, but I think because I was so tired, where I'd been waking up so early, in the middle of the night, I would fall asleep, but it didn't stop the middle of the night kind of awakenings, and it just went on from there, really.
I totally hear. And so yeah, we had this night awakenings that got earlier and earlier and earlier, and then you didn't sleep at all for several nights. And what were your days like then? I'm sure you must have been quite anxious.
They were just awful. They were just I was just so exhausted, really confused to what was going on. I never knew that insomnia like this even existed. I'd heard about insomnia. I thought that it was just, I don't know what I thought. I didn't think anything of it, really. But I didn't know that this could happen to anyone. So I was really confused. I was Googling everything. I was looking on YouTube, looking on Reddit. And then I started to really try things to help me sleep. And it just went really extreme very, very quickly. I stopped putting my children to bed. I couldn't, everyone would have to be like silent from say like 7 o'clock onwards. I would have a really hot bath, make sure my bedroom window was open so that when I did get into bed, I could have the room at like the perfect temperature to help sleep. I don't know why I thought this would work. But you know, it didn't even work most nights, but the occasional night it would, and I would think that it was really working. Then I started. I was going to the doctors. It's all I could think about. It was all day, every day, like just repeating all the time. So I went to the doctors. I spoke to like a well-being lady, and she just didn't have a clue what was going on. She just said, "Oh, like you poor thing," and she didn't know what to do. So she put me on like a course for CBT-I. I just didn't like the look of it straight away. I was like, I'm already getting out of bed every like half an hour anyway. But it was just horrible. Yeah, and then they gave me some antidepressants, and I remember saying, I'm not depressed. I just can't sleep. I can't switch off. I'm not depressed. But they said, like, you must be, and we need to treat the anxiety first before the sleep. And I remember looking on the side effects, and they were just like a big list of side effects, which sent my anxiety even more through the roof. And then they said that they could make the insomnia even worse, and I was like, oh God, I don't know what to do. So I was freaking out about even getting on the medication, and I was thinking, like, how am I going to get off these? I don't want to be on them forever. But I did take some. I think they prescribed metazapine, which knocked me out for like 2 nights and then stopped working. So I couldn't even rely on that anymore. And then I started taking like over-the-counter sleep aids. So along with my hot bath and my glass of wine, my sleepy tea, and the list went on. It was like something new added. I tried what was it? The oil, like some drops. That didn't work at all. CBD oil, that's what it was. Yeah, no, that didn't work. And it just went on. The list was ridiculous.
Now here, it's because it's often like you say, like we try one thing, and even if it doesn't necessarily, well, maybe it doesn't work, but you think, oh, maybe it'll work next time, or it's sort of like, oh, it worked another time, so let's keep that on and add another one, and then let's not get rid of that one, let's add another one, and yeah, the list can really, really grow. Time-wise, though, like when are we still in sort of like November, December here, or where are we?
Yeah, it was sort of coming early December, I think. It was like all in such a short space of time. It was only like a month, and like my whole life had just completely turned upside down. I called in sick to work because I was spending all day in bed as well. Somehow I was managing to kind of take my kids to school, and then I'd come back and get back into bed, and I would lie there and just try to sleep and try. And then I'd go downstairs on the sofa and I'd try and sleep there, and then back to bed, and it would just go on all day, and I didn't get any sleep. There's no point. I don't know why I was doing it. It wasn't working.
That's what happened. When we're confused, we don't know what's going on, and we lost something. We really, really just wanted it back. But I wanted to ask you, so this wellness or well-being lady, she told you about CBT-I, and did you start it, so to speak, or you just by hearing what it was about, you were just like, no, that's not for me?
Yeah, I did start it. It was just like an app thing, and then you have to like write down kind of all your feelings and everything, but it was so much emphasis on like thinking about sleep and tracking how many hours that you sleep, and I was like, 0. And then I think you had to put in like how much time you were spending in bed and how much time out of bed. It was just loads, and I was just like, oh my God, this is not helping. It was making me think of it even more. I think there was some like meditation like videos to do as well, so I would sit there and meditate. Well, try my best to just sit and meditate, and that wasn't working because I was so like intent on it that, you know, wasn't relaxing at all. And I was also listening to these, what do you call, you know, like podcasts, sleepy podcasts, like relaxing kind of voices and music. And I just lay there listening to those. But it was just the monitoring, waiting for sleep to happen all the time. I was never, ever going to sort of get, you know, I might get half an hour here and there, but it was nothing solid.
And was it just maybe once or twice that you know, called in sick from work, you didn't go to work, or did that become like an ongoing thing?
Oh, it was ongoing. I took 6 weeks from work. I didn't really know what to do. I was just in such a mess. And I don't think, like, I remember looking at my sick note and it said panic state, and I was like, how have my life become that, like, a panic state? I'm not even a panicky kind of person, really. So it had all just come out of the blue.
Yeah. Wow. And like, during, like, did you find, you know, us, the sleep coach school, within these 6 weeks, or did you go back to work even before you found like our teachings?
No, I found you. I can't remember. Like, it's such a blur. Because I was so, like, sleep deprived and tired. But I remember looking on Reddit and I saw something about, it was like some good reviews. And I thought, oh, I'll have a little look. And I remember roughly the same time I did find Martin Reed as well. But I kind of skipped his. I think I might have watched 1 or 2 of his videos and I just jumped straight into yours. And then I just watched everything. I watched and watched and watched, and I was like obsessed with watching.
No, I'm so glad you did. Thanks for whoever's posted that on Reddit. That's so helpful. But all right, so you've been in this, like, you know, very confused state. It's been really, really difficult. And, you know, as you pointed out, you go from like living your life to being like like in a panic state. How did this happen? Then you find, you know, our YouTube channel, you start watching. And what's that like? Is it like, you know, are you still very, very scared, looking for a solution, or do you find some relief initially? Or what was it like when you start finding it?
It was relief straight away. Just instantly, I felt so relieved. I thought, I'm not the only one, because I felt like I was alone. I felt like nobody else's insomnia was as bad as mine. I thought it was the worst case in the whole world, and this had never happened to anyone. So when I listened to the recovery stories, I was like, oh my God, like, this is normal. Like, they're getting better. I'm going to be fine. I just felt so relieved straight away. Of course, like, that instant relief, it came in waves. Like, your brain lies. Tells lots of fibs. So I would watch the videos and, like, be kind of like a little bit more calm, and then if maybe that'd last an hour, and then I'd have to watch another load to kind of calm me down again, and I'd just repeat and repeatedly watch them. And this time it was like it was Christmas time, and I started to sleep. I think it was a week before Christmas. I started to have a few, and they wasn't good nights. They were something. I don't know. Like, there was like weird sleep. So I'd be sort of, I knew I was sleeping because I was dreaming. And like the time traveling, like, I'd sort of, all of a sudden it would be like 4 o'clock in the morning, and there's no way I was led there awake for that long. But yeah, it still kind of felt like I was awake. It was just strange. But, you know, I remember kind of just feeling like I was just blinking, and the night was gone. So that went on for a little while, but I sort of managed to kind of muddle my way through Christmas, and I was listening to what everyone was saying, and I thought, right, I'm going back to work. And my attitude changed. It was kind of like, okay, like, bring these nights on, you know, like, I've managed so far, I can just do this. So I did go back to work, and I remember going back, and, you know, I was only having like 2 hours sleep, or, you know, I'd have one good night and a couple of bad nights, and that was into January.
And what was that like? I'm sure you must have been a bit apprehensive about going back to work, worried about if, am I going to be able to work, etc. But how did it go when you actually went back to work?
It was nice. It was nice to like get back some kind of normality, because I just shut myself away from everyone. I hadn't spoken to anybody in weeks. I'd only seen my husband. I hadn't really seen any family or anything. So yeah, it was nice to get back into work and sort of try and focus my attention on something else. But the thoughts, of course, they were still there. They were constant in my mind. I was still obsessed about the next night's sleep, even though my attitudes had changed quite a lot. It was still there constantly. So that was kind of scary. But I would say the nights, as I was working more, the nights were getting better and better. And then I think it was the end of January, I had a bit of a speed bump, and it was kind of out of the blue. Like it just happened all of a sudden. And I had there was 3 nights where I was just up most of the night, and it really freaked me out. I think on the first night I joined the school. Because I was trying to get myself through without joining. I thought maybe I can just do it on my own, but that one night I thought no. I really got quite scared again. So yeah, I'm so glad I did as well. I'm so glad I joined the school.
Yeah, so am I. It was so nice seeing you there, and that things got easier and easier, of course. But that's exactly what I was going to ask you about. When you joined and how you decided to join. So you had the speed bump. You were like, no, I think I need some more support, etc. And you joined. And tell us about that. What was it like to join the school?
It was amazing. It was amazing. I remember my first day, and everyone was so nice. I think I spoke to you on the first Zoom call, and I just felt so relieved, and I knew I was in the right place. And the next few nights were still really bumpy nights, but it just passed. And I thought, oh, I'm with the right people. Nobody else understands. Nobody gets it. These people get it. They're all going through the same thing. It was great. It was just really great. It was nice to have people to talk to that understood, because I wanted to talk to everyone about it as well. That was another thing. That's the main topic of conversation for the last few months. So it was nice to kind of maybe give my husband a bit of a break from my rambling.
I hear. All right, so that's very nice. So you joined, and you're taking part of the calls and our Slack channel and learning the curriculum, etc. But and basically from then on, was it mostly you'd already done a lot of this work yourself, you'd already internalized, contextualized yourself, but from the point that you joined, what was it like? Was it still quite bumpy, or was it I was quite relieved and it wasn't so difficult, or what was it like from then on?
It was still bumpy for sure. I'd have a few good nights and a bad one, and a few good ones and a bad. It would just kind of go like that. But I guess I just didn't care so much as time went on. I think I would just get on with my day. I'd kind of just think, oh well, I'll sleep again. And it's the same kind of attitude now, really. I still having some speed bumps, but nothing like I was, But yeah, it was bumpy, and I think what was worse was daytime sometimes is worse than the night. The night itself can be, I'm led there awake, but it's the anticipating it every day. So I'm going through it in my mind every day of what's going to happen or what might happen. That was quite annoying, but I've just learnt to get used to it. It doesn't even bother me so much now.
No, it's so. Yeah. I think this is so helpful for everyone out there to hear that. It's almost like it's not what actually happens that matters so much. Is how we react to it. night or day, right? It's like if we happen to be awake at night, that in itself, yeah, that can make us tired. But it's like if we think this means something's wrong, this means this and that, the meaning, the story around it, that can make us really struggle. Or even like the daytime where we're like, oh, I'm worried about the night. Well, if we're not worried about being worried about the night, then it's not, there's not so much struggle as if we kind of, again, start resisting, pushing back, and trying to intervene and things like that. So that was something that came to mind as we were speaking here. But did that make sense? Did that resonate?
Yeah, it makes total sense. Definitely. Yeah.
Now, so I don't forget this. One thing I really was like, I have to remember to ask Shari about this. And it was one call, you were in, you shared something that I'll never forget, which was, you said, my mom has been like really, I think, afraid of crowds, really been mostly at home, not going out much. And you had started kind of sharing what you were learning with your mom. And you said, she went out today by her own or something like that. And it was really, really a moment. And it was like so magical and so special. But can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah. So my mum's always had agoraphobia. So she's just never liked to go out on her own. But yeah, everything I was learning, I was like telling her all about it. And I was saying like, because she'd say, "Oh, I couldn't go out on my own." I said, "But why? It's just because you're telling yourself that you can't." I said, "You're just telling yourself the same story all the time, over and over again. But why can't you, really?" I said, "What's the worst that's going to happen?" So she was like, "Oh, well, I'll feel this, this, and this." I said, "Yeah, but is that it? Like, that's all? You're just going to feel an emotion and then what?" And she was like, "Oh, well," she didn't really have an answer. She was like, I said, "It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to get any physical, symptoms or anything. It's just going to be, oh, I feel a bit anxious, or I feel a bit upset." I said, "And then what?" And she was like, kind of stumped. So we kind of went over it a couple of times. I think it was like a week later. She said that she'd been out on her, but I remember saying to her as well, I said, "You've got the option to run away from," I said, "you can hide from it, you can stay in." I said, I haven't got that option. I'm facing the night every single night. What I'm scared of is coming whether I like it or not. You can just stay in your house and shut the door, but I haven't got that option, so I'm gonna have to face what I don't like. So yeah, it kind of worked. Yeah, she went out on her own. I think she just went for a walk around like her area where she lives. She was so excited. She couldn't believe it.
That's so
Yeah.
wonderful. I just remember that. It was such a nice moment. And now, pardon me. Yeah, I think you already shared the story very, very nicely, and how it started, how it faded as well, how it fades. And I was just going to ask you if you could go back in time, if you will, and say something to yourself when you were in that first state when things were really, really difficult. What would you tell yourself?
It's a tricky one because I was just in such a strange place. Like, I just didn't know what was going on. But I think the biggest thing is to have like some patience, because I wanted it to be over there and then. I thought that if I could just get the night's sleep, that everything would be fine, and then I'd get a night's sleep and everything was still the same. So I think patience. I think trust the process, because it is quite a long process, and that's another thing what like really scared me. I used to think, like, I'd hear somebody's been going through this for say like 9 months or something, and I'd think, I can't go through this for 9 months. Like, it was really daunting. But I think, like, I don't regret any of these last kind of 7 months. Maybe like the first month where it was totally awful, but apart from that, like, I've had so many good days, and I think I've really like proven to myself I'm quite strong. So it's not all bad. Like even now, like if I do have a bit of a wonky kind of night, I just get on with the day. I feel like it's just at the moment, like it's just something that's still like hanging around, is still there, it's like still lurking around, but I'm not really paying any attention to it. And like anything you do that's changes your routine a tiny bit. Like last night, I think I stayed up a little bit later than I normally do. And I took a little bit longer to fall asleep. I ended up just going in the spare bed. But instead of beating myself up, I just thought, oh, it is what it is. And then I've carried on with my day. I've been to work. Everything's fine. And I'm sure tonight I'll sleep fine. And if I don't, it is what it is. There's always Netflix. But I know that it's never ever going to go back to how it was. So I think for now, it's more coming to terms with the idea that the memory is always going to be there, because I was obsessed with needing to forget about the whole thing. I was like, once it's done, I'm going to forget about the whole thing. Everything's going to be completely back to normal and fine. And even though my sleep is completely back to normal, obviously I'm not going to forget what's happened. It's happened. It is what it is. Like I'm probably not going to dwell on it, and there's probably going to be like there's lots of days now I don't think about it at all. It's just gone completely, and then bedtime comes and it's it pops back in every night. But it's not stopping me from falling asleep. And like I don't know, it's just such a strange thing, insomnia. It's like such a scary, lonely, awful place to be in, and I think unless you kind of been through it yourself, you can't understand what it feels like. But yeah, everything's got just so much better. Like every month seems better than the last. So, and I just feel like where I was so obsessed with how long it's going to take to be recovered, like I just don't really care. Does that make sense? Like I'm just like, oh, it's fine. Like the nights are never that bad, so I just don't care anymore. Not completely, obviously. Like I still care about sleeping. Like everybody cares about sleeping. Everyone wants a good night's sleep, but yeah, I'm not obsessed like I was. It's like really laughable now.
No, that's amazing. What you said in the last few 4 minutes here, I don't know how long it was, but it was just like amazing music to my ears. And for everyone, I think you should go back and watch this a couple of times, because you made so many great points, like how the thought that, oh, this will take a long time. No, I have to do something else. Ironically, I had a guest named Joseph. He said, for years I was looking for something to fix it now. And ironically, that's why it took so long. And so that's a great point. And the point about like, it's not like it's several months of like suffering. It's like you said, once things starts to clearing up, it's like, it's a bumpy journey, but it's like, it's a learning process. And so you made some great points, and it kind of segues very nicely into my last question, which you kind of already answered in a little bit, but I want to ask you anyway, which was like this, have you learned things that you feel applies to other aspects of life?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it can apply to loads of things, because when we get stressed and anxious about things, our minds can just kind of run away with ourselves. We can just become like fixated on certain problems that are not really even problems. So like, you just don't need to believe everything that your mind's saying. It's just kind of, like I remember saying in the beginning, I feel like I've accidentally rewired my brain, like, and I don't know how to change it back. But the more you like focus on, anything that's a problem, you make it a problem, then it becomes one. So I just try to like not make things problems anymore.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it definitely applies to just so many things. I think I've got a lot more patience. Definitely.
So glad. And that's nothing more to add. No more questions. I think this is like an incredible value. You shared so many wonderful things here. So I want to just thank you so much for sharing this with our community.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime. Thanks everyone for listening, and be in touch,
Bye.
Shari.